In today's show, we discuss, as 16-year-olds who go to work get taxed, should they therefore be allowed to vote? We also discuss teacher-student relationships. What's going on there when you've got adult students or close to adult? And finally, do kids of today have a work ethic or not?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasuda, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Tayo. Bye, Tayo. Hello, my friend. I hope you're keeping safe and well.
What the hell, Tony? What you gonna do, eh?
Come on, let's keep up tradition. I'm going to ask you to say hi to our listener and viewing audience. Come on.
Yeah, hello, audience, whatever.
Wow, he's done it. Hooray! Hey! Hello, audience. I'm actually, after how many episodes? 100 odd episodes. I'm actually going to say hello to you, the audience, without grumbling. What's that all about?
I've been thinking about political correctness.
Oh no, is it? I smell a joke.
I love the way you said that. Oh no. That really fills me with joy. Well, politically correct. It's just politically correct language, right? For instance, you've heard the term hipster.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's politically incorrect. I think it's politically incorrect, the term hipster.
Why?
I think you should say conjoined twins instead.
What?
No, don't call conjoined twins hipsters. Call them conjoined twins.
That is so horrible. Please don't give up your day job. I notice on there it says freelance writer and bad joke teller.
I should change.
You should change it.
Well, I don't get paid for these, unfortunately, so it's not my job. No.
Oh,
Maybe I should start trying to get money. We get paid for this stuff.
Maybe, but the 2 pence won't go far, honestly.
Well, if you get enough of them, too.
Well, indeed. Anyway.
You're lucky I'm not going to tell you about my uncle who was killed in the Holocaust.
Oh no!
He was no, my uncle, my great uncle, obviously, great uncle, died during the Holocaust. Fell off the guard tower.
What?
Fell out of the guard tower.
Are you kidding me? Please don't give up your day job. Go back to writing. It's safer. Anyway, come on, enough of the shenanigans. Let's move on with the show. And today we're going to discuss, hopefully time permitting, of course, a number of topics. And it's mainly to do with youngsters. And I think you came up with most of these, Tayo. And the first one we were going to talk about was 16-year-olds. I mean, they pay tax, so should they be allowed to vote, for instance? What's your view?
Before we start, just a quick word to say goodbye to someone whose activities gave me a lot of pleasure during my life. I'm talking about Olivia Newton-John, who just died recently.
And what a shame.
Her role as Sandy.
Mm.
I did suspect at the time that there was something really wrong in the way they looked for college kids. And then I found out recently she was like nearly 30 or something, and she was playing a college kid. And I think she was good, though, she looked very good. Anyway, yes, very sad. And I just wanted to take this, for those of us who remember that time and that particular movie and how different it was. I mean, the late 70s, we got hit with a whole load of films, iconic films that came out, if you remember that time. Saturday Night Live.
Saturday Night Fever, you mean?
Saturday Night Fever, thank you. Saturday Night Fever. Grease, and of course Star Wars.
Star Wars, yes.
And if you were living in England and you had anything to do with rock music, then we also had Pink Floyd, The Wall.
Well, that
We
was
had
music,
the
yeah.
punk rock, so we had the Boomtown Rats and people like that. It was just an amazing time. Maybe not as amazing as the 60s, but pretty amazing just the same.
It was good. The
And I was a
films,
teenager.
certainly.
I
Yeah.
was a teenager at the time. And I'll tell you one thing, I was absolutely in no position to make an informed choice about politics. I could enjoy movies, I could enjoy music, I could through the effort of my parents,
Mm.
I could contribute to the consumerist society by buying things and spending money. But I wasn't in any way, shape, or form an informed political being. And the idea that someone have asked me for my opinions, of which I had plenty. That's a funny thing. Okay,
Yeah.
at the age of 16, I was 17, 18, like that, I had lots of opinions. I was very opinionated. I knew everything. Only, of course, I didn't. And,
So,
uh,
so sorry
and
to jump in there. So you were, even though you're opinionated, does that mean therefore you I'm sensing you're taking the side of no, a
yeah,
16-year-old should definitely not be able to vote.
not only should a 16-year-old not be able to vote, no competent adult should even listen to 16-year-olds. It's what they think and what they feel and what they want is utterly irrelevant. It just doesn't figure for me. It's like you and I think two guests were talking about Greta Thunberg.
Mm.
And my opinion has not changed that the people who listen to her are the actual idiots in the room, not Greta Thunberg. She, as far as I'm concerned, is an ignoramus who doesn't know anything and just has strong opinions. And that's all very interesting with a teenager. It's just like, I don't know if she's still a teenager. She's probably not now.
No, she's not.
Right. But at the time she was. And I'm just saying that if somebody put her up on a podium and got her to speak, well, fine. Okay. But to listen to her is the people who put her up on that podium, the people who went there to listen, the people who paid her any attention. It's like my main man, President Vladimir Putin. It's like he just said, yes, she's very passionate. And I'm paraphrasing, it's not the exact quote. She's very passionate, and it is good to see young people getting involved in politics, but she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's like, there are harsh realities that we have to deal with, rather than the idealistic thing that teenagers tend to be very idealistic. Well, it should be like this.
But
we agree. It should be like that.
Yes.
But there's a reason why it isn't.
Okay. But the fact that she's looking at one singular issue, which is, I mean, okay, we've sort of digressed slightly from the topic, but we're still covering teenagers here.
Mm-hmm.
She brought to the attention of the masses this big issue of climate change. And whereas people who maybe were ignorant to what was happening, she moved a whole group of people to start clamoring to make it important. And so adults took notice and could see that it's a complicated problem, but it's an important one to be dealt with. So despite what you're saying, oh well, they're stupid, blah blah blah, the fact that she brought it to people's attention, whether you believe she's old enough to make a decision or not, which I'm still, you're entitled to your view, because there's some kids who are very what's the word I'm looking for? They're very intelligent. They know they can have a conversation. They're clever enough to understand problems. And then you've got many adults who clearly are not. So age isn't the factor here, it's intelligence level. So putting everybody under the same brush of saying, well, at an age of 16, we shouldn't be listening to them. So, but going back to our topic, should a 16-year-old be able to vote? A 16-year-old has to pay tax. And I think that option should be available to them. If they choose not to vote, absolutely fine. We're not forced to vote. If we had to force everybody who was eligible to vote, then I'm like you. I would disagree that 16-year-olds should be allowed to vote, because there's enough of them that could seriously sway proper opinion polls. But we live in a democracy. If they're paying tax, they should be given the right to vote, should they not?
I want to take you up on something you said before we move on to that. You said that Thunberg informed the world, got the world to look at the climate change issue. No,
she wasn't the first one.
No, she didn't. She was iconic, and she was raised as an icon of the movement. She did not create the movement. The movement created her.
She's the
so let's
figurehead.
be very clear on that. The movement created her. She did not create the movement. She was just totemic and iconic.
She was the original protester, though.
What do you mean she was the original protester?
She was one of the first protesters in her home country to sit outside a parliament building of some sort and sit there and cause a fuss.
The point is that the whole world already knew about climate change and was already worried, if you like, about climate change. It was already an issue.
Yeah, but stuffy old men predominantly were talking about it because she was young female and appealed to the younger people. They rallied around her. So yeah, maybe she wasn't the start of it, but she was certainly a big catalyst for that movement, where it's become not just a fringe movement, but it's become center stage. Now
we already had climate conferences with serious politicians meeting seriously on a global level before she came along. So I just poo-poo that. I'm not going to accept what you're saying. You say she galvanized the youth.
Yeah, she did.
Oh, well, that's not quite how you put it. So if you're saying that's what she did, that's a different kind of argument from what I was going with. The way I understood it was that you were saying that she more or less created the fever, the fervor. How do you pronounce that? Feather. Yes, the fever and the feather that has swept through, the Western world.
The focal point.
Yes, and I'm saying that she was the focal point because she was created that way. It's not that she didn't create the fever. It's important, no, because it's germane to what we're saying. That 16-year-olds don't know what you do. You can get an iconic 16-year-old. By the way, all you needed to say, if you wanted to go down that route, was just say Joan of Arc, who was 16 when she when she did most of her things. And they burnt her at the stake is my answer. First of all, being uppity.
That was those times. If she'd have done that now, she would have been lauded for her courage and the fact that she could lead a nation. So
we'd still burn her at the stake. That's just how we are, because the world is just like that. We were talking about that you need to be an intelligent 16-year-old. It's not about intelligence, Tony. It's about experience.
So
intelligence.
If a child doesn't have a 16-year-old child I agree, because you get experience and you get wisdom. But then again, I'm going to turn it round again. Mm-hmm. Wisdom comes from experience, but there's some people who are in their late 30s, 40s, wherever, who have none of it. So you can't just tarnish everyone with the same brush.
Yes, I can, because it's an age discussion now. But if you want to talk about who should be voting, that would be a completely different discussion. And I'm very happy to say that I believe that voting should be means tested. But by means, I mean, do you have intellect?
Okay, that's a separate topic.
And I think we already did that in one of our very first shows. Are voters too stupid to be allowed to vote? I believe, at least my conclusion, I can't remember what yours was, but my conclusion is yes, voters are too stupid to be allowed to vote.
In a democracy, though, this is the problem. In a democracy, it is by no means perfect, okay? Yeah. It's the best of a bad lot, let's put it that way. I mean, I'm not using the terms that I think Churchill used better terms for describing democracy. He said it's the worst form of government compared to every other form of government. So it's got
The
its
worst.
faults. It's one of the worst, yeah. The worst
Churchill
form
said
of
it's the worst. Is the worst? No, he didn't.
didn't
Churchill
he
said
did this is what I'm saying. I want to get right what he actually said. He said something regarding it
it's
being
something like it's the best. Is the best of all the alternatives amongst the. But that's not the direct quote. But he said something like that. That's the what you were saying basically earlier. That it's not perfect, but it's the best that we've
best
got.
we've got. Here we go, found it. It has been said that democracy is the worst form of government except all the others that have been tried. So
Sounds a bit.
that doesn't sound like what he said, but I'm
No,
reading
no, I'm
quotes here from him.
pretty sure that's not what
I
he
think it
said.
was
That's
longer than that.
I heard
But
something else. Anywho,
anyhow, we're digressing.
Anyhow, it's
Yeah.
no, it's voting. It's all about voting and who and whether the 16-year-olds should vote. I am very, very firm. Now, you brought up an interesting point, and it's a very important point. It's not just about 16-year-olds. Remember when I said women shouldn't be allowed to vote? We did a
show. I
we did a
disagreed
show.
with you, but okay.
Women shouldn't be allowed to vote. And we even had a guest. We had some female guests on who I think they begged to differ.
Just slightly. For our listeners and viewers out there, if you want to catch that episode, search for our back catalogue. It's there. We have guests, and you'll probably notice from the discussion they weren't too enamored with my good esteemed friend Tayo here, but
who, as usual, is right, but he's been castigated. The ones who are right are the ones that everybody disagrees with. Anyway, I did say in that show, and when one of the guests said to me, "Well, why would I pay taxes if I can't vote?" And I said, "The thing is, you won't have to pay taxes because I like this from is it Benjamin Franklin, who
wow,
got it right when he
I
said."
don't know about this.
Yeah, when he said no taxes, no representation, no, you can't be taxed if you don't have representation. So if you can't vote, this was the main quarrel between the colonies and King George, wasn't it? And that's what led to the American Revolution, because they were supposed to pay all these taxes, but they didn't have a leg in Parliament.
Yeah,
and all they really wanted was to have a leg in Parliament.
Yeah, that's right.
But King George been such a anyway.
Idiot. Anyway, yes.
Yeah. So I really understand that position, and I agree with it. Ergo, you can't tax 16-year-olds. And by the way, voting or no voting, why the heck are you taxing 16-year-olds, for goodness sake?
Well, I'm agreeing with you there.
Seriously, man,
I
they're
agree.
kids.
Yes.
No. So it shouldn't be taxed. Maybe when
They're
you're
not
18,
an adult.
I'm not
officially.
actually even happy at 18. To be honest with you, I think when you're 21.
Well,
And
18
I would
is
like to
classed
move
as
this
an adult.
18. Yeah, I know. I'd like to move this 18 thing adult. I'd like to move it back to 21 like it used to be. I think it should be 21, and then you're an adult, and then you can vote, and then you can pay taxes and all that. You finish university, you got three. No, you're not finished university. You finish school.
Yeah, you finished school.
And then you got time to work and get yourself set up and everything. You're not paying taxes at this stage because you're still just getting into society. And then when you're 21, then it's time for you to join in, so to speak, and shoulder part of the burden of being a good
reached
citizen.
a level of maturity, which means you're an adult and can contribute and so forth.
Yes.
Okay.
Which also has further ramifications. This is where you're going to say Tayo's fascist side comes out.
Really?
Yeah, well, it's there, and it's worth noting that it's there and everything. But if other people would try it my way, you'll find we're all a lot happier. The other thing is, it has certain ramifications for when you can get married, because you really can't get married as a what is it the opposite of an adult? Youngster, as
teenager?
Not a teenager, as somebody who isn't yet. You're still under your parental thing. You can't make informed choices and things like that.
Child. I mean,
it's still immature, whatever it is, whatever the proper term is.
So what you're saying, getting married, so you would then
from 21
prohibit marriage.
Don't get
Okay.
married.
Are
Yeah.
you going to also prohibit sex?
Yeah, if you get pregnant at that stage, then I think the both parties should be for the high jump. Seriously, for the high. I mean, it should be a really serious matter. I mean, we've got to bring back flogging for a thing, and the stocks and things like that. We've got to really make life so uncomfortable because, the kids are just messing around when they're having sex. They don't take it serious. They don't understand about bringing a life into the world and the responsibility that we're taking on. So it's just fun. And that's all they're looking at it. But if you make it so that, yeah, you see this fun of yours, you're going to end up like that person because you have to make an example of a couple of people. And everybody's going to be like, okay, not quite sure. And what we're actually saying, what are we actually saying? Sure. How do we know you've had sex? If you've used safe sex like condoms or pills, we won't know because you won't get. No one's going to get pregnant, so it's going to be fine, right? So in a way, what we're saying is, we suspect it's going on, but don't let us catch you at it. Which I think is from Pink Floyd, isn't it? It's a Pink Floyd.
I don't know.
The Wall, because they're going to catch you if they catch you in the back seat trying to pick her locks. They're going to send you back to mother in a cardboard box. Do you remember that?
I do.
From the
I
Wall.
do.
Yeah.
Great lyrics.
Great,
but yeah, okay.
Man, yeah,
let's move back to the topic. So, okay, you've now made your fascist viewpoint clear,
which I think
for
will
any
work.
of our new listeners out there who may be tuning in for the first time and thinking, "Who is this Tyre guy?"
This is Tyre the Wise. That's Tyre the Wise one, and you will rue the day that you didn't listen to me. And believe me, you should actually fall down on your knees and beg for me to become Prime Minister of this country. Then I will take you up like this and crush you in my fist and make you into a power that will rule the world. You don't know the power of Boya, of Tyre Boya, the dark side.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't be put off. He's a teddy bear, really. But hey. Anyway, let's move on. Right. So, okay. You're of the opinion that they shouldn't vote. I mean,
shouldn't vote, shouldn't be taxed.
I'm actually in agreement with you.
Thank you.
If they are no longer paying tax, and absolutely they should not vote. But the question, therefore, is as they're asked to pay tax, you still don't believe, therefore, they should be voting.
It's just for me not a bicameral situation. You can't just tax them and then tell them not to vote. But at the same time, I'm saying because they can't vote, they can't be taxed. Do you understand what I'm saying you can't separate the two. That they should not be taxed. They shouldn't be voting. Therefore, you can't tax them.
Yes.
So I'm very firmly of the opinion that you can't ask 16-year-olds for their opinion in any sense. You can ask them, but who cares? Is what I'm trying. I don't care. I don't care what an 18-year-old or 19-year-old thinks.
Wow.
And by the time they're 20, 21, then you can start listening. But frankly,
that
because you've got to work, you've got to force yourself to wake up in the morning so many times to get up in the morning when you don't want to go into work, where you drag yourself into work, where you listen to some idiot droning on and being full of themselves and being bombastic, where you hate yourself, where you hate your life, where you just go through the daily grind of just getting there and just doing it and just facing up to the fact that this is life, of the misery of life, of the reality of the situation where it's not fun anymore. It's not, mommy's going to pay, daddy's going to pay. When all those things are gone, it's just you v the rest of the world, where the person you love turns around to be an utter cad and lets you down and has been having an affair behind your back. This is what makes you wise. This is how you grow up. This is what makes you an adult in today's age, so that you've been through all this. And then finally, when you see a politician, when you watch a politician speaking and you listen to the politician, you finally go, this guy's an idiot. That's when you can be a voter.
No,
it's at that point that you can vote.
It's all fun and games in the Bowyer household. I can tell from that monologue. Listen. Can I flip it on the head slightly, though?
Mhm.
Okay. Do you not think that if a 16-year-old is taxed, okay, that would suggest they are already in employment, otherwise they wouldn't be taxed, which is good. Secondly, they are now at a 16-year-old age getting wisdom because they're understanding the tax system. So they're actually more able to see what's going on in the world because they're like, hold on, I'm being taxed. I work this much, I'm being taxed. These politicians are idiots. Do you see what I'm saying? So at an earlier age, they're understanding the political system. So in reality, they should be better equipped to vote.
No, they're just coming on board. That's all. They're just being onboarded into the system of slavery. They don't really understand it. It's not. Is it slavery or serfdom? I think I prefer to call it serfdom
Serfdom's a nice
rather than
term.
slavery.
Yeah.
What in my experience with my daughter is that she came home and she was looking extremely disgruntled. I was like, "What's the matter?" They don't even give me the money to take the tax, but so that I pay the tax. They just take it and give me the rest of it.
That's how it works.
I was laughing my head off because I was like, yeah, okay. And then in a few weeks or whatever, it just became some kind of thing on a piece of paper. That's not what she was earning. She was earning the net, right? So that gross that she thought she was going to earn was a mirage. And within a couple of paychecks, is that what we call it here in this country? Paychecks?
Yeah.
I thought that was an American thing. Pay slips, isn't it? A couple of pay slips.
But paycheck, it's transversable. What's the word? You can switch them around. Yeah, that's the word. Okay.
A couple of pay slips. She had already just got
used to it.
Whatevs,
But for
context,
say. How old's your daughter?
Well, at the time, she was 18, I think, or something.
Okay.
At the time.
Now, what's your view then for the fact that in Scotland and Wales, they are going to allow 16-year-olds to vote?
Well, my view is that we should probably reinvade militarily. I mean, they're forgetting themselves. They're getting uppity. And the time comes when you say, we've had enough of you people. You want to go back into the EU? You're just a millstone around our necks. But we're not going to just let you go with that land, because when we look at the island of Britain, it's nice. It's everything. We're not going to. So you are going to be. You are going to be.
Phone interruption.
Well, sorry, I take some medication. I'm just reminding myself to take it.
Okay.
That was
is this because of your? Is this due to the fact that you're quite stressed? You're quite high strung in terms of these topics. The Bowyer household must be fun and games.
It's because I follow the news regularly, and I just see what's going on, and I tear my hair. I'm just really stuck. Do I go into politics and then do my level best to just get into office and kill the necessary number of people? I think if we lose about 20-25% of the population, including all the uppity people in Scotland, not all the Scottish, no, listen, all the uppity people in Scotland and Wales, we'd be a lot better off.
Oh, dear me. Okay, I'm tired.
But we need the island. We need the land.
You just want the land.
We can't eject them because we want the land.
So we're going to
keep the land. We're going to put the question to you or put you to the sword, and we just a little bit of robustness, just some kind of vigorous robustness, and people just suddenly wake up and go, oh wow, this guy is serious. Oh wow, okay, and people will be serious after that. You're going to get people who are going to be we're going to what did that Bruce what was his name again, the Scottish guy who was played by Mel Gibson.
Oh,
William Bruce, something like this. Bruce, right? Robert Bruce?
Yes. No, Robert Bruce was a famous Scotsman anyway, a real one. But who played that part? That's actually true. Who was it? William Wallace.
William Wallace, thank you. William Wallace. Give us freedom. It's going to be ta 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 ta.
It's not.
And then somebody else goes, give us that, 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 that. You know, the third person is going to be, yeah, okay, all right, all right, all right. And he's like, yeah,
It
okay, everybody
doesn't
get the
work that
picture.
way. Trust
Sorry?
me. It's not going to work that
Oh,
way.
I sing off
All we, all we were
I sing
discussing.
off the hymn book, the song book of Stalin, Joseph Stalin.
Oh
He
dear.
proved it. If you are really serious and you kill the necessary number of people, you will have peace. There will be quiet. He did it. All right, and so did
But he
Mao
was
Zedong.
dictator. These are
Yeah,
dictators.
yeah. But you and I have had this discussion before. Every now and then, this democracy thing doesn't pan out, and it's not panning out right now. So you do need a dictator, but you need a benevolent one. I would be a benevolent dictator.
But
We
how?
don't want,
You've killed loads of people because
yeah,
you're allowing
the
them.
riffraff, the rabble,
No,
the
that's
people who need to
acceptable.
be sloughed, the people
That's
who
not
need
a
to be sloughed
benevolent
off.
dictator.
It is for the rest of the people. It's very benevolent.
Not for
Now,
the
funny
people
enough,
you've
I
just
actually believe in
slaughtered.
laws. I actually believe in laws. It's just that I will put the question to you. Here's the law. Do you agree to obey it or not? So it's your
Why
choice.
have you got the right to make the law?
Because I am the one who has the wisdom to understand where we are. Because the rest of you are not seeing anything. The rest of you are sitting on the fence and you're doing this. La, 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 la. And then you're like the people on the Titanic going, and the blooming thing is like, look, you need someone who's going to say, right, do this, do that, get to the lifeboats, think blah 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 blah. These are the people who do things, who save people, not the people who are going.
Right,
So,
let's move on. Let's move on because I'm mindful of the
all
time
right,
because we
don't
need to
listen to
get other
16-year-olds.
topics in. Summary. Do you think 16-year-old? I think you've answered it anyway, but I'm going to ask you. Do you think 16-year-olds should be allowed to vote?
Nah, 16-year-olds, okay?
I'm only agreeing with you if the tax burden which is currently applied to them is removed, then yes, they
Absolutely.
shouldn't vote because
Agreed.
I believe, like you, actually, they shouldn't be taxed. They're too young. But if they are taxed, then they should be given the choice. It would make the fair system, but you don't believe in fairness. You believe in dictatorship. But that's a separate topic.
Who told
Let's
you
move
that?
on. Let's move on.
Well, that's a bit editorializing, isn't it? You just put words in my mouth and say, let's move on. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay, yes, let's move on. Right, the next question that we want to discuss is basically teacher-student relationships. Now, I think there's a modicum of understanding, and we're not talking young kids here, we're talking almost adult kids who are 17, 16, 17 sort of years of age, and you've got an adult teacher. Now, where there's a female teacher and a young man student, that seems to be somehow more acceptable in a scenario in a school than a male teacher and female students who are 16, 17. You brought this question up. What do you mean by that exactly?
Okay, so it's got nothing to do with 16 or 17. It could be a sort of, the important question there is that the child, the younger person, the word I was looking for is minor.
Minor.
That was the word I was looking for earlier when I was,
Right.
what do you call somebody? Yeah, so a minor. So if an adult has sexual relations with a minor, that's actually statutory rape.
You've actually jumped that forward. So you've actually not the relationship student-teacher relate. You're actually talking a physical relationship.
Oh, I'm talking about physical. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I'm saying that there's a difference between an older male teacher and a female minor. The way that person is treated in society to an older female teacher and a male minor. That the female teacher gets off far more likely than the male teacher.
So you're talking now if they both have committed crimes.
Statutory rape, basically.
It's having underage sex,
Correct.
basically, with a minor.
Yep.
And the court system now, this is what we're talking about then, is lenient on a female teacher and a minor, as opposed to a male teacher and a minor. Have you got examples of this?
I believe I don't have, I can't send people off to this or that link, unfortunately. It's just something that I think is anybody who searches for it on the internet will find out it's generally true. I don't think anybody contests that assertion. It's not contested. I haven't heard anybody saying, "Is that true?" Though, because it is, and it's obvious.
Why do you think that is then? Because clearly you brought it up for a reason. Do you believe there's
I
just
think that
leniency?
people are like me. I think that if if I had a son and he was, shall we say, nailing his teacher, I'd just be proud of him.
What, minor?
Yeah. You just think, wow, really? You got into her pants? Wow. Huh. High five, guy. Boom, you know? On the other hand, if a male teacher was getting into my daughter, that instinctively you go, okay, I'm going to have a word with this guy. And it won't go well, okay? So there's just something about it because I don't know what it is. Something to do with biology or social biology. I've never been able to figure it out what it is. This was until, see, there was a sea change. And it was that sea change that led to this question, to this topic, which is that I didn't realize that if the young lad impregnates the teacher, the family then becomes responsible for the child.
Sorry? Whose family?
The family of the boy's family.
Pardon?
She can then go to court and get child support from the family. I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that.
And once I learned that, I was like, whoa.
Is that here
whoa.
in the UK? You're talking US?
US. I don't know what the law is in the UK. I know a lot about the US, far more than I do about the UK. I don't know why, but it is. I've always said so during all our topics. I know a lot more about the US than I do about the UK. But so, that's the situation.
So what's the word? Is it not alimony? Alimony is from a divorce.
No, it's just child support.
Child support.
The boy can't pay because he's not old enough to pay. So it falls onto the parents of the boy. And at that stage, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is, so there's no more high five, man. You know, to my theoretical son. No longer, there's no high five. Did you use a condom, dude? Okay, I don't want you to do that anymore because I don't want the burden. And maybe
so you're thinking selfishly as opposed to the fact that
maybe your
son has had, you know,
stop thinking it's not fun anymore. It's not fun and games for some, you know, fun and games are no consequence. There are consequences. Perhaps that is why when it's your daughter, because your daughter gets pregnant, it's going to fall on you, you see? So maybe historically, that is why we've had this difference in attitude. I think that's why we've had this difference in attitude. But when it's someone else's daughter, it's someone else's problem.
But what you're saying is that that balance has been redressed.
Yes. And therefore, the balance in punishment needs to be redressed.
But the punishment is there because if a male teacher impregnates a minor student, number one, they're going to go to prison for having sex with a minor. But if the minor then has to give birth because she's a female, the parents of the girl will have to look after the child. But also, that's true, they're not going to get any money at all because the male teacher
will be
probably end up in prison. Yeah,
cooling his heels. But when he comes out, though, you can keep nailing him for quite a long time. But you know, the child will be how old before he gets out? 7 years, 8 years old before he can get out and start earning money.
Possibly.
Right.
But then let's flip it round. Okay, so you're saying that if a female teacher got impregnated by a minor child, then first off, she should be penalized for having sex with a minor.
She will go to prison, but it's only for if a man goes to prison for like 7 years, turns out that a woman goes to prison for like 2 or 3 years. Well, especially because she was pregnant.
Yeah, because she'll have a child, and the rightful place for the child is with the mother. So you can see that.
Well, says who? I disagree firmly.
Come on.
I disagree.
A child under 5 Best
Yeah,
place for a child is with the mother.
best place for
Over
a child is
5,
outside of prison. So, and the woman has to be in
well,
prison. Ergo, the woman cannot have the child. It's just step one, step two, step three. You can't have the child because you're in prison. We can't let you out of prison because you had a child. It's not a get out of jail free
no,
card.
no.
So the child, next best thing, goes to the parents, to the family of the boy, if they want him, or want him or her. If they don't want the child, it goes to the parent, to the family of the felon, the villainous.
But she can't ask for money
Well, she
because
can.
she's the one committed the crime.
Well, unfortunately, she can. You're quite right. I would have thought that you can't profit. I thought there was a fundamental attitude in law, a fundamental sense of justice in law was that you can't profit from your crime.
Hmm.
But the counter argument is that it's not profiting, it's just looking after the child.
Hmm. Because the child is the innocent party in all
Child's
this.
innocent party, child's is looking after.
Hmm. It's very difficult. Not an easy
Again, if things are black
answer.
and white, if you're like Tayo and you just say things in
What
black and white,
what's black and white?
it is very easy. Felons must be punished. You do something wrong, the law says 7 years, you're pregnant, we don't care. You go to prison. When you have the baby is taken away from you, and then you complete your 7 years. It's just like that.
You're disadvantaging the child as well.
We are not, look, the child is disadvantaged because the child has a felon for a mother, a villainess for a mother. Yes, we can't just magically wave a wand and um, make things utopian. We can't do that. But we have step one, step two, step three, and we just like someone said, like a Russian bureaucrat. We just apply the steps. We just apply the steps.
Not
But
ideal steps. No, I mean it's a difficult one.
so
I'm not.
everybody then understands. I love the steps when it's 1, 2, 3 and it's black and white. You know where you stand. I know where I stand.
Well, that's the
Everybody knows where they
fundamental of a
stand.
law,
Yeah,
and
but that's not what we have now. What we have now is that we don't know what's going to happen when we go to court, which means that we're living in a lawless society, which is why the other day I was saying that the UK, Britain, is a third world country now. It used to be that you knew where you stood. In a third world country, you don't know what happens because you don't. When you go to court, there's so much corruption and things that you never can tell what's going to happen.
okay. Can I give you a scenario then where you have a framework and the boundary of the law, and the reason why it's not black and white is there are circumstances that have to be considered because the law says one thing, but there could be circumstances where you have justification to go against the law. So, yes, you've committed a crime as far as the law is concerned, but the reasons are almost justifiable. It's like a scenario of murder and manslaughter. Person still died, but murder is killing someone with an intention to kill them, but manslaughter has killed them accidentally without that original intent. So you have to go through all the process of court to understand and discover, was there malintent when the person died, or was it due to other reasons? And this can be applied in many other areas as well, like speeding. You could be speeding down the road doing 100 miles an hour. You're technically breaking the law. But if you discover that you stop the car and there's a injured person in the back seat bleeding to death, the driver is driving 100 miles an hour to get to the hospital to save the person or child in the back seat, then you can look at that with slightly different eyes. So the law is there as a law to keep society within certain boundaries, and that's absolutely right. But the reason you have courts is to take each case in its own on its own merits and see where it fits in. So going back to what we're talking about regarding the teacher-student relationship, yes, it's wrong. They're both breaking the law, but it's not simply black and white. What if the teacher say female teacher, was forced upon by the young man.
That's not a relationship there. That's rape.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Well, the young man's with the high jump.
Well, how do you determine that unless it goes to court? And we hear and see both sides of the argument.
I think we can determine it by looking at the evidence, such as she sent him naked pictures of herself.
Yes, agreed.
Well,
that
that's what
doesn't
I'm
help.
saying.
I mean,
So,
we're making a hypothetical story here,
no,
but
I'm actually thinking about one particular case where she ended up marrying the boy when she got out of prison, and they have like 3 or 4 kids now.
okay.
So that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about that particular case. I can't remember her name, unfortunately, but yeah, she went after this 13-year-old. He was
13? Oh, no,
at the time, and she
that's
was in her
terrible.
mid-20s or something.
No,
And
that's
again, she
terrible.
only went to prison for a short period of time. Some of them throwing away the key.
Was she pregnant? No.
When they caught her, yeah.
With a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
See
And
that?
yeah, left her husband for the 13-year-old, by the way.
What?
So
No, that's totally wrong.
something
Totally
very, very
wrong.
off there.
Something, yeah,
These are the
something
situations
wrong
I'm
with
talking about, where it is sort of, I don't know where you're coming from, where you're coming from with this kind of thing. It's like, if it's rape, then as soon as he finished raping her, no doubt she got a hold of the police, reported it as rape, the boy's been arrested, and yada, 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 and we're going on that route. That's not what we're talking. I'm talking about the consensual. So, well, it can't be consensual, of course, because as a minor, you can't give consent. That's why it's statutory rape, right?
Yeah.
But I'm talking about a situation where the boy wasn't complaining, so to speak, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So those situations I'm talking about. I'm not talking about any sort of weird
See,
kind of.
you're talking about situations which aren't the norm either.
How
You're
do you
now
mean?
talking, you're talking cases in each case being looked at individually. So that's how it should be.
I don't follow that. I don't follow what you're
Well,
saying.
what I'm saying, you're using examples to fit your argument.
These are the people that I'm talking about. I'm not using an example. These are the cases I'm talking about. In the male teacher, female student case, that's what I'm talking about. I don't know where you're coming from. I'm talking about the male teacher and the female student likes the male teacher and they have a relationship. And then I'm talking about the converse of the obverse, the opposite of that, whatever. The opposite of that, where it's the female teacher with the male student and they like each other. That's all. So I'm not introducing rape or any kind of weird
Right. So it's
edge case.
it's actually they like one another.
They like one another and they've had illicit sex because they can like one another, but they shouldn't do anything physical about it until the minor is no longer a minor.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, yeah, they've both broken the law, and
Yeah.
yes, then
Law should apply equally.
Well, the law should apply equally
There
because
we go. That's what I'm saying.
the older the adult, whoever it happens to be, whatever their gender, they're breaking the law. Period. They are.
Absolutely.
I agree with you there.
And they know it because they hide it. They know what they're doing because they're hiding it. You can always tell that somebody is guilty because they've been hiding it. They didn't do it openly.
No.
Mm.
Shame involved as well. Yes, indeed. Okay, so what's your view then? I'm mindful of the time here. Gosh,
my view is
that
we in society have got to get our heads round this idea that women claim to be equal to men, but they're always looking for the off-ramp. They're always looking for privileges. And it's time for us to put our foot down and say, no, it's equal rights doesn't just stop with equal rights, also equal responsibility.
Well,
so we have equal rights and equal responsibility, ergo equal punishment for the same thing. End of story.
Well, yes, I suppose that makes perfect sense. It has to be equal in all respects, and the law says, or the law should say, it's the same whoever commits.
Exactly. Especially now in the West, we don't even know what a man and woman is.
Well,
supposedly.
That should then remove any difference.
Exactly. Remove anything. You know what the hell a man is. You know what a woman is.
Okay.
supposedly.
Right, okay. Next one. Let's move on. Let's move on because we've only got a few minutes left here. This one is kids' work ethic. I brought this one up actually to discuss why some kids have good work ethic whilst others don't. And I want to frame it correctly here because this also applies to adults. It's not just
Not
kids.
just the kids.
There are plenty of adults who have no work ethic whatsoever. But does it start at the kid's age, or do they change at all? If they've got a work ethic at a young age, do they keep it into adulthood, or vice versa? If they haven't, does it change in adulthood? Can wisdom, as you've rightly said in the previous topic, can it apply and they switch on and go, oh, actually, I should really start to work and earn my way and get more out of life by having a good work ethic? What's your view to that, or do you not have a view at present?
I think in a society where politicians try to give away blandishments in order to win office, get the votes to win office, we are increasingly entitling people, just entitling them to expect an easy ride. I was either watching a video or listening. I seem to remember it was a video I was watching when I think it was a YouTube video, and someone was complaining. The video maker was complaining that in modern society we have workers who expect the people paying them, i.e., their employers, to treat them a certain way. And they expect to get a full wage packet, even though they have not done the work. So that if they don't feel like coming into work, they should still get paid. They are that entitled.
See, that's wrong. I totally disagree with that. You've got to give a day's work for a day's pay. You can't be entitled to money. That's not where it should be.
That's
You
not how
have
they
to
see it.
earn the money, and this is how it should be. So, I mean, my son, my oldest, sorry, when he was 15, he had 2 jobs at 15 because he wanted to. How good is that? Because he wanted to earn money to buy himself a motorbike and learn how to ride it, which he subsequently did, which was fantastic. And he had 2 jobs at 15, working in a restaurant at the weekend, in the evenings, and working in a garage, fueling cars and cleaning cars and doing the odd jobs. And he did that at 15, just at the weekend. So he was working Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday, every weekend, for 2 jobs, because he wanted to earn money. And then when he finally left school, he increased those 2 so that he could earn even more. And now he's doing doing very well, actually. I mean, he's obviously in his early 20s, and he's got a company car and doing really, really well because he's had a good work ethic. I've instilled that in him. And you don't get a free lunch. You've got to earn it. You've got to give something in return for income. Now, it's not a straight transition. You put this many hours in, you expect this much pay. You have to give some value for that time that you spend. It's no good going to work and spending the days sitting with your feet on the table drinking tea all day. That's hours spent, but there's no end result. You've got to give something in return for the pay packet that you're expecting, and it has to be an equal balance. Granted, people who go to work expect a level of of some, you don't want to be a slave. You want to be in
Respect.
clean, yeah, a
Respect.
clean surroundings. You're respected while you're there, but equally you still have to work while you're there. There's no this free lunch business and people expecting payment.
Speaking of respect, one of the jobs I had, which I think made me change my mind about feminism, because I worked for a female CEO, and was working for that female CEO that made me change my mind about feminism. What do you think about respect? Was the office is very clean. There was lovely coffee available. If you wanted coffee, it was there, I think there were biscuits in the kitchen. All very nice. But boy, the level of disrespect was so high.
Is this you to her or her to you?
To everybody.
Oh,
Just utter contempt for
really?
utter contempt for the workforce. Because
Why?
actually, it
Wanted the
was
work done.
looking back, it's hilarious. I don't know. It wasn't. I wasn't really working for her. I was a contractor. Contractors can leave anytime.
Yeah, yeah.
So I never felt, look, but it was kind of contempt, just really disrespected the workforce.
Really?
And it's funny that when you say that you got to work, that when you go to work you expect some kind of respect. It doesn't always happen, pal.
No, I know. I
It
know it
doesn't
doesn't
always
always
happen.
happen. It doesn't
Strange.
always happen. It's strange, isn't it? Because I think that's more the case in the smaller companies.
Yes.
As the companies get bigger, they realize that they have to.
Oh, I don't know about that, Tony.
Well,
You
no,
just become a number then.
you
It's
do
not that
become a number,
it's
but
not that
there
you get
are
respect. It's that you
no
become treated
more
like a cookie cutter,
fairly.
just the same
Yeah.
way. Okay, what are the rules that apply? Bah, 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 there you go. There's no empathy it's just
Hmm. But
HR gets involved. HR looks at it and goes, you broke the rules, or no, you didn't break the rules, everything's fine,
yeah,
So there's no love. If I don't know, there's no empathy, no compassion.
in
It's
big
just
corporations, possibly it really depends. If you view it that way, you do have your immediate line manager and people like that. So you have got a little, it's very rare that you're working in a silo. You have got other people around you. So yes and no, there is some truth for that. But you do get more than the basics. You probably get an air conditioned office, you
mhm.
get a proper lunch, lunchtime, you get teas and coffees. So your surroundings are adequate for you to perform. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but going back to the point of
The
work ethic,
youngsters.
yeah, if that work ethic is instilled early by parents, guardians, whoever's looking after the kids, make sure that work ethic is there. I'm saying this because give the kids chores to do. Give them chores to do. Make them do them. Don't be afraid to, they'll get annoyed. Guess you're too late now.
You're living in
They
cloud
should.
cuckoo land, Tony.
Yeah. Sorry.
You are living in cloud cuckoo land. Someone said to me when I was working in Wales that there were entire families who hadn't worked in 3 generations.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Now, who's going to instill what into whom?
You can't. Well, if it's the
It's like
environment,
discipline, isn't
you
it?
have
It's
to
like
take them
discipline.
away.
Look, it's like discipline. I used to get caned as a child. I don't know if you did.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you caned your kids. I caned mine.
I didn't
But
cane
I
the
have the feeling that
kids.
she's not going to cane her kids. So her kids and her kids' kids are going to grow up without caning. How does discipline come back in again?
Mm,
That's what I want to know. That we don't cane in school any longer. Well, so the teachers now weren't caned.
yeah.
Well, how do they instill discipline? How do they know how to instill discipline? It's all talk and what they just do is just they medicate their way. This is America again. Again, I'm taking my case histories from America. I don't know about the UK. I probably should start learning about this country.
That would help, seeing as
No,
we're here. But yeah.
but all sorts of funny things, shenanigans seem to happen in America.
They do, yes. But we do get to hear a lot of the edge cases. It's not always like that. But okay, carry
No,
on.
I mean, no, hang on. They medicate their kids in America, okay? America has the highest medication of children in the world, bar
Mm,
none. I mean, it's like way out there. If you can't control a kid, the kid has got ADHD.
ADHD, yeah.
And then they just medicate the kid into compliance, basically. And that's how it's done.
See, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Totally wrong.
Now, what is ADHD but a hyperactive child? And by the way, hyperactivity doesn't mean reach for the cane, by the way.
No.
It's not what I was suggesting at all. A hyperactive kid needs
stimulation.
Well, actually, you know what I used to do? You know what I used to do? I used to ask one particular child when I was teaching, one particular child was really hyperactive. And just in the mornings, I used to just challenge him to run to the bottom of the schoolyard and run back again. And then I'd pretend to time him. Oh. And then I'd say, "Oh, we're a bit slow." I'd be like, "No." And then he'd go off again. And 2 or 3 times up and down. I said, "Wow, you did it. You did it again." And he'd be jumping up and down with joy, And then it's all tuckered out. Fine.
How old was this child?
Maybe 10, 11.
Wow. See, ladies and gentlemen tuning in here, did you know that Tayo was a teacher? Goodness me. But yeah, so you're right, that it's finding what the child is into as well, and using that as their stimulus even further to get the best out of them. I go back to that story. I think we touched on it on a previous show about the teachers discovering the talents or the strengths of their students and then somehow gearing the lessons to those talents.
Well, they're good teachers, but I don't know if you've got good teachers who care.
Well, it's
few and far between.
If they're piled on with too much pressure, too much tick boxing, then they just want to get it done.
And are they even allowed to? If you show an interest in a child nowadays, what does that mean? Everybody's looking over their shoulders now. Everyone's frightened.
It's the fear, yes.
It's a terrible situation that we're in. Everyone's afraid of something.
Yeah, litigation and worse, Okay, look, I'm mindful of the time here. We haven't done this one much, but work ethic. It's trying to get the child to understand the value of having a good work ethic, because that will get them ahead of the pack, because there's competition for jobs, or less so at the moment because there's a shortage of actual working people. But on the whole, when you apply for a job, the likelihood is you're not going to be the only one. So if even a child or a young person can show they've got good work ethic by doing charity work, by doing odd jobs, by helping old people, by dog walking, any of these small jobs are still valuable to a potential employer, because they will see that the individual has got off the sofa, off the front of their games console, and actually done something. And that adds value, and it helps the child or young person with employment and then getting on the road of life, basically.
Yeah, I think what I did for my daughter was that I got her to volunteer at a local railway charity that operated on, I think it was Saturdays. I don't know if it was Saturdays and Sundays. I think it was just Saturdays, or maybe it was just Sundays. And they run a little local line with steam engines and whatnot.
Oh, excellent.
And she just helped out at the shops. She wasn't getting paid for it. I paid her for it, you see.
Yeah.
So
if they can't afford to pay, it's the work, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just to get out there. And then the first time, she was looking so worried that even my heart went out to her. Like, but should I take her back home? And her mother was like, "No, come on, we've come this far. Let us stay."
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like she'd be sort of knocking on the door. We're getting late now. She wanted to go. She didn't want to be late. And yeah, so.
Well, see, but the thing is, it's instilled that's been beneficial to her.
Yeah. So my point then is that when we have a society where you get handouts from the government, it's going to tend towards this of a charitable state where we lose the work ethic. So it starts from government saying, no, we're not going to give you money. I believe that to resolve this issue, we've got to make it where the government doesn't hand out money. The social benefit should not come in money, it should come in coupons. So you can get a coupon for food.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a coupon for transport. You can get a coupon for clothes. But you don't get money. If you want money, you can work.
Well, yes,
That's it.
that is certainly an option. How expensive that would be in itself is interesting.
Well, you're giving them money to go and do these things. Well, instead of giving them money, just give them coupons.
I know, but the coupons will then have to be, because obviously the coupons will have value in you can use them in a certain place.
Oh,
There's forgery. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done. It's an interesting look at things because you're not giving.
It can be electronic coupons. It don't have to be.
Yeah, physical coupons. Yeah, it could be.
No, it can be electronic
coupons
that
could be used. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It would need thought, but certainly that is something that could be considered.
And that's where you have an incentive, a huge incentive, because you don't have a single penny if you don't work for it.
Yeah. You see, just on a side note here, I mean, I'm mindful of the time. In the UK at the minute, the government is proposing giving a big chunk of money to people to pay for winter fuel. Because of this, the spiraling costs of gas and
self-inflicted, by the way, idiots.
That's separate topic. However,
Russia.
However, the fact that they're going to give £400 to every home in the UK in October, spread over 6 payments. Now, how is that going to be paid? Is it cash? Is it against the bill itself? How are they doing it? I have no idea. I hope it isn't cash, because there'll be some people out there who won't spend it on their gas and electric.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll spend it on
it's a blandishment, isn't it? I actually used that word earlier. I spoke about politicians giving blandishments. It's a blandishment, it's a bribe. So I suppose it will be cash, because they want to try and bribe the population to re-electing them.
Yeah. Okay, final points, because I'm mindful of the time. What's your final points on this, the kids' work ethic side of things?
Society in itself, the British society itself, the social security society itself has caused the problem, and it can only redress it by taking away that incentive to not work. It must re-incentivize people to work.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, thank you for that. But unfortunately, we have reached the end of the show for another week.